His hand touched my waist like it had always belonged there. The moonlight slipped through the slats of the blinds, falling over the creased hotel sheets and the scattered layers of clothes that marked our undoing. My heart beat loud in my ears, racing, stumbling, racing again, as his lips brushed the curve of my shoulder. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need to. The way I leaned back into him said everything. His name was Jordan. He was tall, clean-cut, golden brown with the kind of jawline that made you want to trace it with your fingertips. His scent was woodsy, like cedar and warmth, and it lived in my skin long after he did. He wasn't mine. But that night, he didn't feel borrowed. When his fingers slid down the side of my thigh, I didn't stop him. My breath caught. My body trembled. Not from nerves, from release. "Tell me you want this," he whispered. I closed my eyes. I already have it. We moved like a memory. Slow at first, testing boundaries, like two people who knew it was wrong, but were too far gone to find the brakes. And then faster, with a heat that pulled words from my mouth and drew soft, breathy gasps that tangled into the silence of the room. I gripped the edge of the mattress like it could anchor me, but it didn't. Nothing could. Not with him behind me, his mouth on my neck, my name on his tongue. And when it was over, when the air stilled and our bodies cooled, he pulled me close and kissed the back of my hand like a gentleman in a forgotten century. I turned to look at him. I saw the truth in his eyes. I saw the danger too. But I didn't turn away. This is just the beginning. If you're still reading, you already know. This isn't just a story. It's a confession. One you'll feel in your bones. Welcome to Top Stories Vault, where every story is raw, real, and unforgettable. If this gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, because the truth I'm about to tell will pull you in deeper than you ever expected. Drop a comment below if you've ever kept a secret that could break everything. Now, let me tell you how it all started. My name is Rachel. I'm 34. I'm married to a good man. On paper, anyway. His name is Evan. Strong jaw, neat beard, tall, quiet, gentle. He works in finance in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've been married for 9 years. No kids. By choice. Or maybe by avoidance. Either way, our home is silent more often than not. I'm a photographer. I shoot weddings, engagement sessions, and the occasional product for local brands. That's how I met Jordan. He was a friend of a groom. He offered to help carry my equipment. He had this effortless charm, polite, funny without trying, and those eyes, like melting gold. It started with a smile. Isn't that always how it starts? A few weeks later, he sent a DM harmless, complimenting a photo I'd posted. I said thanks. He said I had an eye for light. I told him I liked his taste. He said he liked mine too. One night, Evan was asleep early. I was wide awake. I messaged Jordan. "Still up?" He replied instantly. "Always for you." I don't know what possessed me to send the photo I sent. It wasn't explicit, but it wasn't innocent either. My hair messy, collar loose, lips parted just slightly. He responded with a voice note. Just a soft laugh and a low, "You're trouble." And I wanted to be. That was 2 months ago. The truth is, Evan and I haven't touched each other in nearly a year. I can't remember the last time he looked at me like a man looks at a woman he wants. He used to. Back in the beginning, he was attentive. But over time, things got still. Not violent, not cruel, just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your chest ache. I tried to fix it. Therapy, talks, dates. Nothing worked. One night I wore his favorite black dress. He glanced up from his phone and said, "You look nice." Nice. I looked in the mirror after he went to bed and whispered, "You used to say beautiful." So when Jordan said it, when he said beautiful, I believed him. We started texting daily, then calling, then FaceTime at night, when Evan was at the gym or watching reruns in the other room. It became our little world, a stolen one. Jordan lived in Atlanta, just a few hours away. He owned a small event design company, worked with florists and planners, traveled often. He wasn't married, but he'd been hurt before. "I don't trust easy," he once said. And yet, he trusted me. Or maybe he just wanted me enough not to care. The first time we met in person outside of that wedding, I told Evan I had a brand shoot in Asheville. That part wasn't a total lie. There was a shoot, just not that weekend. Jordan picked me up from the hotel. We didn't kiss right away. We had dinner first, some rooftop place with string lights and soft jazz, and a waiter who called me ma'am with a twinkle in his eye. After dessert, Jordan reached across the table, took my hand and said, "Are you sure?" I nodded. Back in the room, he paused at the door. Last chance. I kissed him, slowly, deeply, like I'd been waiting for someone to wake me up. He didn't rush. He undressed me like I was something fragile, a silk blouse he didn't want to wrinkle. Every movement was slow, intentional. And when we finally came together, it wasn't just bodies meeting. It was everything I hadn't felt in years rushing back at once. Desire, electricity, life. That night, I cried quietly after he fell asleep. Not from guilt, not yet. From realizing what I had been missing. Back home, Evan noticed a glow. He thought it was the mountain air. I let him believe that. He made me coffee the next morning, kissed my forehead, said he was glad I had a good trip. I smiled, said, "Me too." But in my head, I kept seeing the way Jordan watched me sleep, the way his fingers played with my hair, the way his voice whispered, "I wish you were mine." And I wished I was too. Not every story starts with a broken vow. Sometimes it starts with a broken soul, and someone who sees it before you do. If this story has your heart racing and your mind wondering what happens next, do this. 1. Smash that like button right now. 2. Hit subscribe to join Top Stories Vault. 3. Leave a comment below. Rachel's secret is just beginning, if you're ready for more. Your support helps this channel grow. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. I didn't plan to see Jordan again so soon. I told myself that night in Asheville was a one-time thing, a moment suspended in time, meant to breathe life into a woman who had started to feel invisible. But the thing about breathing again is once you do, you'll do anything not to drown again. The morning after, I returned to Charlotte like nothing had happened. I slipped into our quiet home, left my suitcase by the door, and walked into a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon coffee and routine. Evan kissed my cheek, asked how the trip was, then turned back to his laptop. I wanted him to look at me. I wanted him to really see me, to ask, "Are you okay?" To notice the change in the way I moved, the way I looked at him, guilt buried beneath mascara and borrowed smiles. But all he said was, "You're back early." I told him the shoot wrapped quicker than expected. He nodded, said, "Cool." And just like that, I slipped back into the shadows. That night, Jordan texted, "Jordan, you looked beautiful sleeping." Me, "You watched me?" Jordan, "I couldn't stop. I stared at the screen too long. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I started to type something honest, something stupid like, 'I wish you were here.' But I backspaced it and just replied, 'Me, I'm home.' Jordan, does it still feel like home?" I locked my phone, sat there in silence. No answer. Not really. 2 days passed, then 3. He didn't text again. I tried to be okay with that. I told myself, "Rachel, this is good. You crossed a line. Be grateful it didn't burn down your whole life. But when you taste something real, something that touches every nerve and thought and ache. You don't just forget it. You crave it. 1 week later, my camera strap broke in the middle of a wedding shoot. I cursed under my breath, adjusted the weight, and finished the job with a stiff neck and a blister. I came home exhausted, tossed my gear on the table, and collapsed on the couch. That's when my phone rang. Jordan. I didn't pick up. My heart beat too fast. He called again. I answered. Hey, I said, voice tight. Hey, photographer, he said, low and calm. Missed that voice. I said nothing. I didn't trust myself to speak. Look, I get it. Maybe I made things too deep too fast. But I need to see you. I sat up. Jordan, don't say no. I'll come to you. No hotels, no drama, just you and me. One night. I exhaled. Evan's not traveling this week. Next week, he said, hopeful. I hesitated, then nodded. Next week. When the day came, I told Evan I booked a cabin an hour out of town for a creative retreat. He barely blinked, just said, be safe. That should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it made me feel forgotten. Jordan rented a small lake house in a quiet town with trees that arched over the road like guardians of secrets. It had a screened-in porch, soft plaid bedding, and a fireplace that made everything glow. When I arrived, he opened the door before I knocked. His smile was soft. Not cocky. Just real. Thought you'd change your mind, he said. I stepped inside. I almost did. He didn't touch me right away. We cooked together first. Pasta, wine, laughter that came too easy. It felt like we were rehearsing a life that wasn't ours, but could have been. Later, we sat by the fireplace. I curled up beside him, my head on his chest. He ran his fingers through my hair, over and over, like he was memorizing the feel of me. You ever think about what it would have been like if we'd met first? He asked. All the time, I whispered. Then I kissed him. It started soft. His lips brushed mine like a question. My hands slid under his shirt, feeling the tight lines of muscle, the warmth of his skin. He lifted me gently onto his lap, holding my waist like I might vanish. We didn't rush. It wasn't about heat this time. It was about need. The kind that comes from being untouched for too long. My breath trembled as his hands moved lower, slower. Every touch felt like a promise he couldn't keep. And when we made love, yes, that's what it felt like. Not just lust. It was quiet, gentle. The kind of connection that doesn't need sound because the bodies do all the speaking. Afterward, I lay in his arms, my leg over his, our fingers intertwined. He whispered, I'd give up everything for one real day with you. And I almost believed I'd do the same. But morning always comes. Back in Charlotte, the guilt started to spread like a slow fever. Evan kissed me that morning, really kissed me, for the first time in months. I missed you, he said. I forced a smile. I missed you too. Lieutenant. That night we sat on the couch. He pulled me close. I flinched. It was slight, but enough. He looked at me. You okay? Yeah, just tired. He nodded, but his eyes stayed on me. He didn't believe me. I stood up. I'm going to bed early. You didn't even finish your wine. I paused at the hallway. It didn't taste right. It was a strange thing to say, but it was true. Nothing tasted right anymore. Not after Jordan. In the bedroom, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Who am I becoming? But I knew. I was becoming someone I swore I'd never be. Someone who lied with a soft voice and clean sheets. Someone whose heart beat faster for another man's text than her own husband's touch. I thought about ending it, telling Jordan it was over. But my phone lit up. Jordan. I still feel you. And I replied, me. I feel you too. God help me. I meant it. It was a Thursday when it all shifted. A nothing special kind of day. Sun poking through scattered clouds. Birds squabbling near the windowsill, like they always did. I was at home editing a shoot, fingers dragging lazily across the trackpad. My head wasn't in it. I kept glancing at my phone, even though I knew Jordan wouldn't text until night. He always waited until he was sure Evan would be home, just to test if I'd answer. And I always did. But that day, it wasn't Jordan who changed everything. It was Evan. He walked into the room, sat on the edge of the couch, and said, "You've been somewhere else lately." I looked up too fast. "What do you mean?" "You're here, but you're not." I opened my mouth, then shut it. He continued, "When I touch you, you tense. When I talk, your eyes wander. You smile at your phone like it holds some secret you don't want me to know." There it was, the slow unravel. "Evan," I started, but he held up his hand. "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying, I miss you." That hit harder than I expected, because a part of me missed him too. The him from 5 years ago. The man who stayed up late with me on the porch, drinking cheap wine and planning a future with nothing but love and ramen. The man who used to kiss me in parking lots, just because. But that man had faded. And so had I. "I'm trying," I said quietly. He nodded, looked down at his hands. "Just don't shut me out, Rachel. I love you. I still do." Then he stood, kissed my forehead, and went out to cut the lawn. I stared at the closed door. My chest ached, but it wasn't the kind of ache that pulled you back. It was the kind that reminded you something had already slipped away. That night, Jordan texted, "Jordan, come see me." Me, "I can't." Jordan, "You mean you won't?" Me, "Evan's been different today, more present." Jordan, "That enough to make you stay?" Me, "I don't know." He didn't respond. For the first time, I wanted him to beg, to make me feel wanted in a way that burned past the guilt. But the screen stayed dark. The next day, he sent an address. "Jordan, I'm here for the weekend. No pressure. Just, if you come, I'll know you chose me." It was supposed to be another lie. A weekend retreat for a photo seminar in Atlanta. Evan helped me pack. Kissed me goodbye twice. I almost didn't get in the car. Almost. The place Jordan booked was a sleek Airbnb on the edge of Greenville, modern with big windows and moody walls. He met me at the door. No questions. No smug grin. Just open arms. I walked into them. That night was different. There was no soft music. No wine. No pretense. He kissed me before I'd even dropped my bag. His hands tangled in my hair. Lips urgent. Needing. I matched him. Breath for breath. We stumbled backward into the bedroom, shoes kicking off, clothes left in pieces across the hallway. When he laid me on the bed, there was no patience in the way he looked at me. His eyes were hungry but reverent, like he still couldn't believe I was real. We moved like fire and thunder, fast, hard, desperate. There was no speaking, just gasps, low moans, and the creak of wood under tangled limbs. My fingernails dug into his shoulders. His mouth moved along my neck, my ribs, the curve of my waist. I bit my lip to keep from crying out, and he noticed. "Let go," he whispered. "I want to hear you." So I did. Afterward, we lay there, breathless and sticky with sweat, the air heavy with everything we weren't saying. He traced a line down my arm, then said, "I don't want to borrow you anymore, Rachel." I turned away. "You knew what this was." "Did I?" he asked, his voice sharp now, "because it feels like more every time I touch you." I pulled the sheet over my chest, suddenly cold. "Don't ruin it." "Is that what I'd be doing?" he said, sitting up. "Ruin, not rescue?" I stared at the ceiling. "You're not my rescue. You're just the place I breathe." He stood, walked out. I heard the fridge open, then close. Silence. The next morning, he made coffee. I drank it in his shirt, legs bare, heart confused. You leaving today? He asked. Yeah. He nodded. You'll come back, though. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. Back in Charlotte, the guilt was louder. Evan noticed. He watched me like a man trying to read a foreign language with blurry eyes. Was it a good trip? He asked. Yeah. Get any good shots? Didn't really take many. He smiled, confused. But it was a photography seminar? I looked at him too long. Yeah, just needed the break more than I thought. He pulled me into a hug. His hand rested at the small of my back. I stood stiff. You okay? He asked, voice muffled against my hair. I nodded. But I wasn't. 2 days later, Jordan sent a voice note. I played it in the car, parked outside a client's house. His voice was raw. I don't want to be the other man. I want to be the man. But if this is all I get, these pieces, I'll take them, because I've never wanted someone the way I want you. And maybe that's not fair, but I don't care anymore. I sat there long after it ended, my fingers trembling. I looked at myself in the mirror. Hair pinned, lipstick fresh. Married woman. Liar. Cheater. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. Then I walked into my client's house and smiled like my life wasn't burning. Because that's what I'd become. A woman who knew how to hold fire without screaming. And the burn was starting to feel like home. It started raining halfway through the week. Not the kind of soft, forgiving drizzle you forget while it's happening, but a heavy, persistent downpour that made everything feel louder. The roof thudded with it, and so did my heart. I hadn't heard from Jordan in 2 days. Evan came home early that Wednesday. He was soaked from the walk from his truck to the door. His hair clung to his forehead, and water slid down the side of his jaw. Lost power at the site, he said, kicking off his boots. Thought I'd come home and just be with you. Be with you. It should have made me feel warm. But instead, I felt cornered, like the walls were inching closer. I made tea, sat with him. He told me stories about work I'd normally pretend to care about. But this time, I tried to listen. I really did. He reached for my hand halfway through. His thumb stroked my palm. You've been quiet lately. I'm just tired, I lied. He squeezed my fingers. We could get away, you know. Take a break. Somewhere quiet. Just us. I smiled weakly. That sounds nice. But inside I was screaming. Because my silence had never been about needing a break. It was about the space between us growing too wide to cross, and how I had already started building a new life on the other side. That Friday, Jordan finally texted. Jordan, you still mine? I stared at it for 5 minutes before responding. Me. I don't know. I don't know what I am anymore. Jordan, come over. No pressure. Just you and me. No pretending. That night, I told Evan I needed to meet a bride about a winter shoot. He nodded, like he always did. No suspicion. No fight. He trusted me. That trust made it worse. Jordan was waiting at a hotel this time. Nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. I walked in wearing my guilt-like perfume, invisible but thick in the air. He opened the door and stared at me like he was afraid I might vanish. I didn't think you'd come, he said. I stepped in without speaking. He closed the door behind me. We didn't even make it to the bed. He kissed me hard against the wall, his hands tangling in my coat, my hair, my soul. I kissed him back with everything I was trying not to feel. Fear, confusion, hunger, ache. His lips moved to my neck, my collarbone, my shoulder. I moaned softly, biting down to keep it from escaping too loud. He carried me to the bed like I was something precious. Not stolen, not borrowed, just his. We moved slower this time. He studied me, memorized me, asked for nothing but gave everything. Every touch felt like a question. Do you still want me? And every time I sighed his name, I answered, yes. But I shouldn't. Afterward, he held me with his hand flat against my stomach like he was trying to anchor me to him. I wish this was real, he whispered. It is. Number, I mean all the time, not just the stolen hours. I didn't reply. I couldn't, because what we had was real in the wrong way, in a way that broke something sacred. I left before sunrise. Driving back through the fog, I passed a bakery that Evan and I used to go to on lazy Saturday mornings. I remembered how he used to pick out 2 pastries for us and always gave me the bigger one, even though he secretly wanted it. That memory made my stomach twist. I stopped the car and sat with my head against the steering wheel, wondering what kind of person I'd become. The truth was ugly, but it was mine. The next week, I tried to focus on home. I cleaned, cooked Evan's favorite meals, sat close to him on the couch like a woman trying to rebuild a bridge she'd already burned. He noticed. You're different this week, he said, rubbing my thigh gently one night. You're lighter. I smiled, trying to be better. He kissed my temple. I love you, Rach, no matter what. You know that, right? I swallowed hard. I know. And that terrified me more than anything, because love shouldn't come that easy when you're being lied to. Jordan stopped texting for 5 days after that. Then one evening, he sent one word. Jordan. Enough. I knew what he meant. He was done being the secret, the afterthought, the ache on the side. But I couldn't answer, because I had started needing both of them. Evan, the stability, the history, the man who would move heaven to fix me. Jordan, the fire, the forbidden, the man who saw parts of me I hadn't shown in years. I was drowning in 2 kinds of love, one that held me safe, and one that set me on fire. On Saturday night, Evan reached for me in bed. His hand brushed my hip, his lips warm on my shoulder. I turned toward him, my body stiff. He noticed. Still tired? I nodded, ashamed. He leaned back on the pillow, hurt in his eyes. When did we stop being us? I don't know, I whispered. I think I disappeared and didn't tell you. He reached for my hand. Then come back to me. And in that moment, I hated myself, because I didn't know how to come back, because I didn't know if I wanted to. The next morning, I opened Jordan's message again. Enough. Maybe it was, but maybe it was just the beginning of something I couldn't undo. Sunday morning began with silence. Not the kind of peaceful silence that wraps you up and makes you feel safe, but the kind that presses down, like something was missing from the air. Evan had already left for his shift. He'd left a note on the counter, next to a cup of coffee. Be back by 3. You look tired. Didn't want to wake you. Love you always. That last part, love you always, landed like a stone in my chest. I stood there barefoot, wrapped in a robe, reading those 4 words over and over. He meant them. Evan had always loved me in a way that was simple and whole, without needing explanations or conditions. I just didn't know how to receive that kind of love anymore. I spent the morning cleaning a spotless house just to keep my hands busy. Every corner I scrubbed felt like penance. I tried to stay distracted, but guilt clung to me like damp clothes. My phone buzzed around noon. Jordan, you okay? I stared at the message. I hadn't answered him since the last time I saw him. Hadn't replied to enough. Me. I don't know. He called almost immediately. I almost didn't answer. But I did. His voice was quiet. I don't want to make your life harder. You already have, I said without meaning to. But I let you. There was a pause. I could almost hear his breath catch. Rachel, I can't do this halfway anymore. Either I matter or I don't. I know it's messy, but I need to hear it from you. What do you want?" I didn't know how to answer. So I didn't. I just whispered, "Can I see you?" He didn't say yes, but I heard him breathe out like he'd been holding that breath all morning. I wore a black dress, one he'd never seen before, one Evan had bought, but I'd never worn for him. I wasn't proud of that. The hotel was nicer this time. Downtown. Big windows, tall ceilings, soft jazz playing in the hallway. I don't know if he chose it for me or for himself, but something about it made everything feel more official. He opened the door, and for a second, we just stood there looking at each other. "You look—" He didn't finish. He just pulled me in. This time was different. There was no rush, no clumsy hands or tangled breath. It was slow, almost reverent, like he wanted to learn every inch of my skin like a prayer. His hands were warm against my waist. My back arched under his touch, not from lust, but from how seen I felt. Like he wasn't just touching my body. He was touching the woman behind all the guilt. We moved as if we were alone in the world. His lips traced my jaw, my chest, down to my stomach. His breath warm, his voice low. "You feel like home." I closed my eyes. Don't say that, because homes burn too. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets. His fingers played absently with my hair, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was hiding. I felt known. He looked at me. "I want you to leave him." The words sliced the air open. My throat tightened. "Don't ask me that." "Why not?" "You don't love him anymore." "I do. I love what he's been to me. I love the idea of us. I don't love who I am with him." "Then who are you with me?" I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't keep living between two worlds. Evan deserved more than a wife with a divided heart. Jordan deserved more than the shadows. And I, God help me, I deserved to know the truth about what I really wanted. That night, I drove home slowly. Rain on the windshield. Red lights everywhere. A Taylor Swift song played softly on the radio. One of the old ones. The kind that felt like it had been written for a version of me I lost somewhere between my wedding vows and now. When I pulled into the driveway, Evan's truck was gone. I went inside and found the lights on, dinner waiting, and another note on the counter. "Worked late. Left some pasta for you. Let's sit and talk tonight. I miss you." I stood there for a long time, staring at that note, until my legs gave out, and I sat on the kitchen floor in that same black dress, crying into my hands like a child. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew something had to change. The next morning, I opened the linen closet to grab fresh towels and knocked down a shoebox I didn't recognize. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Evan's usual stuff either. I opened it slowly. Inside were photos, old ones, of me, from years ago, at parks, in cafes, walking barefoot in the backyard. Evan had taken them when I wasn't looking, when I wasn't trying to be anything for anyone. Tucked in the corner was a folded paper, a letter. I opened it. "To my Rachel, if you ever find this, I want you to know something. Even if someday you stop loving me, even if you leave, even if your heart finds a home somewhere else, I'll still thank God for every day I had with you, because you were my once in a lifetime, and I'll always love you for that." My heart cracked open, because it wasn't anger that he'd saved in that box. It was acceptance, unconditional love, quiet and patient, the kind I'd run from, the kind I thought I wanted to feel again. Jordan texted me again that night. "Jordan, have you decided?" I stared at the screen. The truth was, I hadn't. But I was getting close. Evan's hands were shaking. Not violently, not the way a man shakes when he's about to explode, but soft, controlled, like he was holding something fragile. Maybe it was the truth, or maybe it was me. He stood by the kitchen sink, eyes on the floor. I'd told him everything. Not with every detail, but enough. I told him about the nights I'd said I was with friends, about the lies that started out harmless and turned into poison. I told him about Jordan, not just his name, but the way he looked at me, the way I felt around him. I didn't expect Evan to speak at first. I thought he'd leave, slam a door, yell something loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Instead, he wiped his hands on a dish towel and said quietly, "How long?" I answered. "Do you love him?" I hesitated, then nodded. "But do you still love me?" That was the part that made my chest hurt. I don't know how to answer that. He nodded once, jaw tight, then pulled out a chair and sat down. He stared out the window like he was listening to something inside himself louder than me. "I think I knew," he said finally. "I just didn't want to see it." I walked over slowly and sat across from him. The kitchen table had never felt so wide. The space between us was more than wood and air. It was years of safety, routines, laughter over dinner, soft mornings with coffee and tired eyes. And now? Now it was a battlefield of love and pain, where no one had won yet. Evan looked at me again. Really looked. "I always thought loving you would be enough." I blinked away tears. It was never about not feeling loved. Then what was it about? I didn't have the perfect words, but I tried. I think I started disappearing in this life we built. I was smiling, but I wasn't here. I needed to feel something that reminded me I was still alive. I know how selfish that sounds. He didn't speak for a long time. The silence felt endless. Then he said, "You didn't need someone new. You needed someone to notice you were fading." And just like that, I started crying again. Not because of guilt, because of grief. Because I didn't know if we were mourning what we'd lost, or saying goodbye to it forever. That night, I didn't sleep at home. I packed a small bag, a coat, a pair of jeans, my toothbrush. Evan didn't ask where I was going. I think we both needed the space to breathe. I drove, no music, just my thoughts. By the time I got to Jordan's apartment, my head felt like it was full of water. Quiet, but heavy. I knocked once. He opened the door like he'd been waiting behind it the whole time. He pulled me into his arms. "I told him," I whispered. He didn't say good. He didn't say finally. He just kissed my forehead and let me stand there, leaning into him like I was trying to learn how to balance again. We spent the night in silence. No touching, no wild passion. Just two people lying side by side, unsure what came next. The next morning, I sat across from Jordan at his kitchen table, just like I had with Evan. He made me coffee the way I liked it. French vanilla creamer, too much sugar. "I don't want to be a reason you ran away," he said gently. "You weren't," I replied. "But maybe you were the mirror I needed to see myself clearly." He reached for my hand. "You said you loved me," he said. "Is that still true?" "I do," I said. "But love isn't the only thing that matters." He looked down. I squeezed his fingers. "You showed me something I forgot I had. Choices, desire, emotion. But you also showed me what I'm capable of when I'm not careful, and I don't want to be that person anymore." He didn't fight it. He just nodded. We sat like that for a while. Not as lovers. Just two people who had set something on fire, thinking it would keep them warm, and now realizing it had burned down more than they'd imagined. A week passed. Then two. Evan and I took a walk one afternoon around the block. We didn't talk about everything, just the small stuff. How the roses were blooming, how the neighbor's dog had puppies, how the air felt different in May. He still wore his wedding ring. I didn't, but he didn't ask for it back. One evening, I asked him if he'd want to try therapy, with or without me. He nodded. Then he asked, Would you go with me? And I said yes, because maybe we could still be something. Not what we were, but something honest, something rebuilt. Jordan moved to Denver. New job, new city. He texted me once before he left. I hope you keep choosing yourself, even if it's not me. I replied, thank you for being the wake-up call. I hope you find what you're looking for too. Now, when people ask me if I regret it, I never know how to answer. I regret the pain. I regret the lies. I regret how many nights I came home with someone else's kiss still on my skin. But I don't regret waking up. I don't regret finally asking myself what kind of woman I wanted to be, and realizing it wasn't the one who hid her truth behind laundry and dinner plans. I'm still learning to forgive myself. Evan's still deciding if he can. But one thing's for sure, I'll never let my heart fall asleep again. If you've ever loved someone and lost yourself in the process, if you've made mistakes you thought would break you, this story was for you. Don't judge the ending. Don't rush the healing. Life is messy. Love is even messier. But truth? That's where freedom begins. If this story moved you even a little, help us keep telling stories that matter. Subscribe to Top Stories Vault right now. Hit the bell. Leave a comment. What would you have done if you were Rachel or Evan? Let's talk. Let's be honest. Let's keep waking up. We're just getting started.